Okay, so our next game is Full Throttle, which was nominated by @ScottHDC, developed and published by LucasArts on April 30th, 1995 for, I think, just about anything that had a CD-ROM at the time. Well, no, actually, probably just PC Mac, right?
Right.
Yeah, I mean, Full Throttle was, I believe, designed and mostly written by Tim Schafer. Features the voiceover work of one Mark Hamill playing Mr. Ripburger or whatever his name is.
Yeah, Full Throttle was like the first fully Schafer game. I mean, he worked himself up in LucasArts on the first two Monkey Islands and Day of the Tentacle. But Full Throttle was his baby on his time with LucasArts.
It's kind of hard to tell, too, because Full Throttle is a lot more grounded in style, I'd say. Like, you look at Psychonauts, which is very Tim Burton-esque, and Full Throttle is very much not in that kind of style.
Yeah, if you compare this to what quite a few might consider Schaefer's magnum opus, Psychonauts, it's like it's like looking at fraternal twins where one's 7 feet and the other's a ball. I don't know. It's just
like
an
the
interesting
movie
contrast.
Twins with Danny DeVito and Arnold Schwarzenegger.
That's the analogy I was trying to think of. I just had a total
Starring
brain fart.
Danny DeVito as a flesh-like ball.
Exactly. That's actually pretty accurate. No offense,
I
Mr.
think the
DeVito,
short
excellent
explanation
actor.
on that is simply that this is, they gave Schaefer control, but I doubt that he was, had nearly as much, he couldn't say like, well, it's a crazy universe where everything's wacky all the time. It's like, no, we make like a game that's very similar to a lot of the other LucasArts games. They all did feel somewhat grounded, even when they went crazy or fourth wall breaking. There was usually quite a lot of grounding to sort of hold it together.
It reminds me most of, the art style's a little bit different, but it reminds me of kind of like a Batman the Animated Series-esque logic, where there's some wacky out there things, but it's not like an unserious world.
Interesting compared to Batman, as you've noted that Mark Hamill is Ripburger, who is the villain.
It basically sounds just like the Joker.
Yeah, he pretty much...
Kinda just a little less loud.
So let's do the plot of this game really fast. So you play what's the main character's name?
Ben, the leader of the
Ben.
Polecats.
Leader of the
He has a
Polecats.
last name, but I don't know what it is.
Some say that it's just Ben Throttle, but this hasn't exactly been confirmed. I think they had to lose it due to, I don't know, some behind-the-scenes messery. I'm not sure exactly.
Ben is he is the leader of a biker gang named the Polecats. He inherited leadership from, I believe, Father Torque.
Yep.
Which is my favorite character in the game.
Oh, he's rad.
It takes place in, I don't want to say it's like a post-apocalyptic wasteland. It's more like just a kind of like...
Some point in the future, but probably not.
Kind of like, kind of like just some Badlands area.
I'm reading 2040. Yeah, it's like society hasn't completely gone to pot, but the Mad Max influence is very apparent in the game's artistic
the only
direction.
really futuristic thing is the flying cars, and they don't even fly that far.
Yeah, so like
part of the universe is just kind of like magical biker land in some ways, isn't it? Like
it is kind of like
sort of
like
weird
the biker gang
economy.
Valhalla. Yeah, it's like if you're a good biker gang member, like when you die, you go to this game. I don't know, but there's
and
like
if you're a bad biker, you go to Roads of Redemption.
Yeah, it's kind of like a cross between Mad Max and The Warriors, I guess is what I would describe it as. Like it's not really...
What is I have completely forgotten his sacrifice game. Brutal Legend, sorry, Brutal. It's a bit like Brutal Legends, scaled way far back to being almost reality, but it has that same sort of like feel to it where it's just like not really actually Earth.
Right. Yeah. I mean, it's a point-and-click adventure game. If we haven't said that, one of the great LucasArts point-and-click adventure games, in my opinion.
I think a few people would probably say it's their best.
Some people would. I mean, I don't think it's. I wouldn't put it up there with, honestly, like the Maniac Mansion guy. What's his name?
Yeah, Day of the Tentacle, Bernard.
No, the guy.
Oh, Ron Gilbert.
Ron Gilbert. I wouldn't put it up there with Ron Gilbert's work. I feel like that is seminal in a way that Full Throttle is definitely building on that. It's like kind of like a Monkey Island style.
I think the strongest point of Full Throttle is that it looks really great. Like it has.
Yeah, that's What I want
Yes.
to say is I always really appreciate how cinematic it is, for lack of a better word. It really does feel like a movie at points, and that's a very much good thing for an adventure game.
Yeah, the Scum engine had been LucasArts' Scum engine that they used for their adventure games had been repeatedly revised for almost every new game that came out. I forget which incarnation this one was, like 6th or so, I want to say. And yeah, just compare it to the last game before this, Sam and Max Hit the Road, which also looks great, but is also certainly a lot more cartoonish and the style's looser. Here, the style is very hard and somewhat realistic. I mean, I want to say exactly like the film Heavy Metal. I want to say there's maybe a vague ring of that in how the game looks.
I'd say it's a lot closer to The Warriors and Streets of Fire, which are by the same guy.
Yeah, Walter Hill. No, I could definitely see that.
There's no Rick Moranis, but
oh, if only. I also want to say I feel that Full
There's
Throttle.
Maurice LaMarche or whatever. He's in it.
Yeah, he's one of Ripburger's 2 cronies, Nestor, I believe. Oh yeah, I should mention
like a
that.
mystery though. Like you gotta that's one of the key things that differentiates it, I think, from other point and click adventure games. Is it seems like there should be a lot more mystery games, but there aren't.
Right, because the framing device is a conspiracy.
Right.
basically.
Yeah.
It's almost kind of noir-esque in its story.
It's about
I think.
exactly.
What's the name of the company that makes all their motorcycles? It's
Corley.
Harley Motors.
Yep.
Corley, yeah. So it's like the Harley Davidson stand-in, right? It's like no biker, self-respecting biker would ever ride a bike that wasn't made by Corley Motors. And then the villain wants to like do some kind of he's got some kind of like murder plot to take over the company and make minivans.
I love that so much. That's
which
just
is
such...
great. It's a
I
very
mean-
90s concern. But,
I mean, it probably would sound horrifying to any like dyed-in-the-wool biker for a company just totally abandoned its roots. But on an outsider's perspective, it's just such a hilarious concept.
I think when we're pushing around, I think a lot of the humor in this is not a lot of the humor is not like a ton of gags, but it's like there's a lot of like that sort of humor. It's just like like it's just really funny in places. Like the concepts
Right.
are funny and stuff.
Yeah, it's
just
I don't-
like visual ideas, I think.
Yeah, it's
Yeah.
It's comically serious compared to the 2 prior LucasArts adventures, Day of the Tentacle and Sam and Max. This one is certainly more down to earth, a little bit more stoic, but it looks more serious on the offset, but it still has a lot of humor. It still knows what it is.
It's dry, but it's never like
Yeah.
overly grim or anything. There's
Yeah,
a lot of
exactly.
He
jokes.
says, the main character says funny stuff.
Yeah,
which
he's
is
got.
great.
Bennett-
Yep, he's
voice
got to have
acting
the
in the game.
classic.
Oh yeah, I should know. Probably the defining role of voice actor Roy Conrad, who sadly passed away not too long after this game was released, like 5 years ahead or so. I mean, I'm getting ahead of myself, but I know that they had plans to make another Full Throttle game. Unfortunately, Roy passed away before it was realized, and the project just never got off the ground, I think due in part to his absence.
They could have hired the Duke Nukem guy to do it. It would have not sounded all that
Yeah, I almost want to say if Steve Bloom was around, then
he
I
could
mean,
do the same.
he
But I
would've
mean,
rose
like they
from
could have
this.
just made it about a different character. It doesn't have to be about Ben. But anyway, like I mean, there are little details in this game. It has the only like hand table knife game mini game, probably the best like superfluous mini game in point and click adventure history.
Yeah, the only other games that I know that has that are Aliens Infestation and Red Dead Redemption. But the more games need to have the knife trick or the 5-finger fillet or
yeah.
what you call it.
It's also got some other cool, just like the user interface design is really cool. Where you bring up like your command/item wheel, and it's like this like burning skull.
It's their
biker tattoo.
Yeah.
But it's like you can actually hear. I believe maybe I'm misremembering this, but I believe you can hear like the flames crackling off the tattoo for some reason.
I'm
Every
pretty
time
sure
you bring
can
it
hear
up, it's like
I recall that. Yeah.
Yeah, I want to say that cursor interface is also considerably scaled down compared to prior Scum games, which I forget if it's like the simplest work within LucasArts, but I know that they come a ways from Secret of Monkey Island, which had like 12 different commands, pick up, put down, pull, push, and all that. All that's just been whittled down to your inventory and a few small bits.
I like how there's an option just to kick things.
yeah,
Yeah, Ben.
always an option.
Yep, Ben is more physical than prior adventure game heroes, which I appreciate because there are some points in the previous adventure games where I think, why doesn't this character just punch someone? What, they're a pacifist? Screw that. I want to get ahead and not have to, like, conduct some sort of elaborate Rube Goldberg-esque device to get someone out of the way. Let's just punch him and be done with it. And Ben does that.
If you're gonna speak about punching people, why don't you talk about the game's black sheep moment?
Ooh,
Oh boy.
well, unfortunately, we have been gushing about Full Throttle at this point, but it tried something that unfortunately didn't really take, because it has combat sequences.
It's like Road Rash if Road Rash was orchestrated by a complete idiot.
Well, all right. I mean, it's not. You don't have to do that much. It can be frustrating.
I admit, kind of the brick wall for me in this game is a point where you have to like just drive around the world map randomly, just beating on people until something happens.
Yeah, a little less than halfway into the game, you have to go on, what was it called, Old Mine Road or whatever. The thing of it is, this actually is still an adventure game, even if it doesn't look like it. However, it's... The game's entire perspective changes just to Ben riding his motorcycle and coming across various gang members on the road stretch, and he has to defeat at least one of each member for whatever purpose, and combat as it stands is just very janky. You just have to
Punch-Out-esque.
move your mouse left and right and then just tap when they're close, but usually their AI is better than yours.
This has, this has cast kind of an oddly long shadow, and well, not really. I mean, not a long shadow because nothing really. Adventure games kind of died shortly after this, but like you see this in certain Telltale games as well. Like I would say, like in The Wolf Among Us, you see this kind of thing. Like it's done better. It's more Punch-Out-esque. It's like a timing based fights.
It's basically just QTE though, isn't it?
Well, yeah, but it's an elaborate.
Well, that's something that adventure games have kind of always tried to do. Like from this point on, they're always like, okay, people don't just like puzzles. We have to put in mini fighting segments.
It's just
like
something else to do. It's something. The point of an adventure, in a way, an adventure game is kind of like a beat 'em up arcade game, in that kind of the point of the game is to keep the player going to see what happens next. Not all, like, adventure games can't necessarily rely on a story because you can get really convoluted, like it's hard to make a game gamey enough in this genre and still tell a compelling story.
That's what I am pretty sure about this game. Like I said, the story is actually holds up really well.
Yeah.
Even the puzzles work that way. You always know what you have to do and why you're doing it.
Yeah, for them.
It never really feels arbitrary, like, say, King's Quest V.
Yeah, exactly. No murder boats to be had here. Yeah, for the most part, I thought that the game's puzzles were very grounded, and I usually didn't have too much trouble of what to do next, except for Old Mine Road, because the secret for those fights is that really you just need the right item to try and beat the gang members, so it usually isn't just a straight fight, but because the game's perspective just changes so wildly at this
you feel
point,
like it's suddenly turned into Road Rash, but it really didn't.
Yeah, you feel like that you have to actually be fighting, but it's a giant curveball, and I think this is like the only point in the game where I had to inevitably look up an FAQ like I do for every adventure game ever, but this is the point where I had to do it, because I didn't know you had to get that green dust and throw it into Chainsaw Lady's eyes. How was I supposed to know that? I didn't even know you could go back that far.
Actually, now that you mention some of the characters you meet, like the weirdo future biker gang people, like it does kind of seem like it later would inspire something like Borderlands, which had it took it to a whole nother level, but it's kind of the same idea. It's like a future that resembles something kind of like a biker gang apocalypse type thing. I don't know. Anyway, why don't we
kind of like one of those kid-friendly apocalypses? There's not skeletons and dead bodies everywhere.
Yeah, people aren't eating each other.
Yeah, everyone's still everyone's fine with it. They're not having a bad time. It's
doesn't get as dark as
people still suits and such. So I guess.
Yeah, I should note that this is the sort of game where you use a bunch of robot toy bunnies to sniff out mines in a minefield for you. So.
Oh yeah, that part bugged me so much.
Really?
But,
I thought it was hilarious.
it was funny, but it got really annoying. Yeah.
Oh, okay,
Let's rank this one.
Well, I did want to say two more things before we get to that. I honestly think that going back to the graphics, that this game looks better than the next LucasArts adventure game, The Dig, where the characters didn't seem quite as detailed, and the setup of that game's visual design was less consistent. Although we're not talking about The Dig, so
The Dig is a beautiful looking game, but The Dig looked at Full Throttle and went, you know what? Full Throttle is too easy. Let's make this game impossible.
Yeah, that was the LucasArts game where I probably had to look up the most FAQs to try and get around to it. Well, we're not ranking The Dig. I certainly have worse to say about it if we get to it. But, no, scaling back things to Full Throttle, I also did want to once again compliment the voice work because... I should also note that a veteran voice actress, Cass Susie, who somehow I know best as Phil and Lil from Rugrats, she's Marine. She's there's a good deal to say about her character that's spoilerish, but she's this cool girl that Ben wakes up in the house of after his bike explodes, and she's really neat. And I think Tress MacNeille's also in this as well. It's like quite a few voice actors back from WB.
You know who else is in Full Throttle? Steve Blum.
He isn't. Oh, I'll be darned. I think he's not a major character, but I think he's one of the punks from one of the gangs. Back even before Cowboy Bebop. I don't know exactly when he got his career started. This really had a lot of awesome artistic talent, and it's got a lot of great style to it. If it wasn't for that Old Mine Road bit, I would say that this is definitely one of LucasArts' greatest adventures. But even in spite of that, it is still up there. I want to call it my fifth favorite of all the LucasArts adventure games that there is. A little shorter than the others, but it's actually longer than I thought it was. Just comparing run times to some of the other LucasArts adventure titles, it's only 20 minutes shorter in comparison, but... no, this one is definitely well worth playing. I have to check if it's on GOG or not, but I know Xerxes wanted to rank this, and
it's got a remaster thing, Double Fine was able to, I believe, right?
Well, I know they did that for Grim Fandango, but
I think it's back out.
They announced at the end of 2015 that Full Throttle's getting remastered, but it hasn't come out yet. I guess it's in the works at least. So anyone who wants to play Full Throttle, definitely look out for that. It should hopefully be on the horizon near the end of this year, so we'll see.
Okay, let's rank this sucker.
Let's go.
This is going to be tough because this game is leagues beyond King's Quest V and I Have No Mouth and I'm a Scream.
I'm a real snob for LucasArts titles. I'm not the biggest adventure game fan, but the ones that LucasArts did for the most part, I think are the creme de la creme, and have yet to be topped even by a lot of modern adventure games.
I don't even know where I'm going to rank this one, so just throw something at me.
I would put it below Blue Stinger.
Oh!
Okay.
That's just...
Because, my range was, I was below Ikaruga. That's where I had been putting it in my head.
Okay, Xerxes, let me ask you this. I will agree to you to put it between Blue Stinger and Contra the Hardcore if you are placing Full Throttle on there without drawing the Dog's Bower card.
Well, here's the thing, is that Full Throttle is the kind of game that would really benefit from Dog's Bower.
Son of a bitch.
It would have. You can't argue that a character dogs.
Look, I'm a fair man, or a Dog's Bower-esque character. I mean, correct me if I'm wrong, but there is no Dog's Bower. The closest you get is Father Torque.
Okay, I'll admit, Father Torque should have been in the game more. He only appears for 2 or 3 scenes.
You have to meet him on the road. It's like he's constantly moving on his bike, as I recall. Maybe I'm misremembering that, but I don't think he ever stops riding his bike. He just keeps going forever.
Yeah, there was. It seems like this game is missing the constant presence of a grizzled older biker, older than Ben.
But it is funny. The game is perfectly funny. It's just, I feel like there's it's a little bit too Like we didn't even mention the soundtrack, which is kind of interesting.
That's that one song that opens on Legacy by the Gone Jackals. That is how you open a game.
I do
That
see
is
that
really
song,
cool
I'll be
opening.
honest.
This is a
the
legacy of too few for too much that I see. Yeah, it's excellent. Trying to think if there's anything that's above Blue Singer I could place this next to. I'm going to admit I'm having a hard time thinking of that. Now, if we were to discuss... the only other LucasArts adventure games I like more than Full Throttle are Day of the Tentacle, Sam Max Hit the Road, Curse of Monkey Island, and Indiana Jones and the Fate of Atlantis. Now, if we were discussing that, I'd probably fight more to get it a higher place.
I mean, that's a lot of games to try and push higher like that.
Exactly.
That's the problem is that it inevitably gets compared to the rest of its peers, which is not a fair comparison point.
Yeah, and
for LucasArts point and click.
I mean,
though I'm not really familiar with many adventure games. I just know that this one is very good, and that's good enough for me.
The thing
It's very
about Full
good,
Throttle is that it has some issues, and it's very short, which is like surprisingly short.
yeah, I said it is short.
Experience than a game in some way.
Yeah, it is shorter than LucasArts. Most of their other adventures, as I've noted, not too much shorter as I've compared, but it does still feel like there could have been at least one more area to this game. I think
That's kind of why I'm putting it below Blue Stinger, because I think on the gameplay level, it's kind of like Blue Stinger is a game that is, the gameplay is nothing special. What makes the game special is everything else about the game. Just the fact that it exists, is just crazy. And I think that's the same thing for Full Throttle.
I think that Full Throttle's world is really fantastic. It's just the problem is, this is definitely one where I want more of it. I would like to know more about.
I feel like once you get to the last part of it, I'm kind of like I'm sort of ready for this to resolve itself. Is how I.
You can't. There's only so much depth a world of this type can sort of sustain. I would compare it unfavorably to Grim Fandango in that regard, where Grim Fandango is such a huge and encompassing world, and it works really well.
Right, Grim Fandango is
like,
the kind of game where you could make a new Grim Fandango and be like, there's so much more to explore in this world. Whereas with Full Throttle, it's like I don't know whether I want to see any more of Full Throttle. I feel like it's good as it is.
Too much desert, I guess.
Well, I mean, it is what it is. It's like if you open the world up anymore, it's not going to be as fun.
You got a point. I would have been interested in seeing how that sequel would have turned out, but I get also the feeling that the canned sequel might have had more combat elements in it.
I feel like Brutal Legend in a way was kind of like the
It does feel like there's definitely some Full Throttle in there, even if it's just Tim Schafer still had more to say about bikes and metal and those sort of
I mean, it's just kind of like that was to rock and roll what Full Throttle was to just like biker gang kitsch. But anyway, I mean, who disagrees with me?
I mean, I put it below Ikaruga, but that was my opinion. I gotta hear from Bob. He's
you know what? I would also put it below Ikaruga. I would put it above Sin and Punishment.
You know what? I'll live with that.
Between Ikaruga and Sin and Punishment, then, just so we could bridge those treasure games. I do really like Full Throttle, but if not just for the whole confusing Old Mine Road bit, it does lose a few points, so I'm going to concede with your placement. However, I will say in Full Throttle's case that it is definitely worlds away better than what I'd say is Sierra's premier adventure game of 1995, which was Phantasmagoria.
I do want to say one more thing.
Yeah, what's that?
This is like the first good adventure game we've actually really covered. We're going to have to think about how many games we're going to have that go above it.
Well, there's a lot of adventure games I put above it. I mean, it's just people don't nominate them.
Yeah, I only encourage that people do nominate more adventure games.
If somebody nominated Grim Fandango, I think we'd really have to... Or even like somebody nominated, say, The Walking Dead, like one of the more recent games in this genre.
Because I think we haven't really, we don't really get to discuss that, but because adventure games in many ways, point and clicks, they bombed for a while, and then I think they got much better. Like they had the potential and the ease of development.
It's the hindsight. I'd say they're kind of like fighters in that way. I mean, fighters never really went away, but they kind of went away. like 2D
Yeah,
fighters.
exactly.
2D meaning like 2D plane.
Yeah,
no-
they coasted for much of last decade before Street Fighter 4 brought them back to prominence.
and it's like anybody. Let's all do it. Let's bring
Full
back Mortal
Throttle's an interesting
Kombat.
one because it has like a big, kind of like a comparatively high budget behind it, and it's definitely a must play if you're interested in adventure games.
Yes.
But once you've played it and once you finish, you'll be like, well, that was really good, but
You'll never have to play it again
Yeah.
because you'll
It's like
remember
a
everything
movie.
about it.
Yeah, that's a catch of most of these adventure games. I mean, they look great, but replay value, it is what it is.
I don't want to,
Well,
I don't want to
Adventure games
sidetrack too
until
much to something.
recently. Like I think
Like-
nowadays, like the adventure games that you can play, you do want to play them again because you want to try doing the completely opposite thing that you did before, see what
Right,
happens.
something has multiple parts.
I want to say
and-
the point of those games is that you should only play through them once and live with your choices forever. But no, I see where you're coming from. That
No,
they
just
do
for
have
fun. Like just
different
be like a
patterns.
huge douche to everybody. Like just see what happens. Like
I wonder
That's
if
why
I
they
sh-
make them like that. Most people like this is true, and this is true from they had this from Fable 2, I think it was. There was like they had analytics and stuff, and they were like like 90% of players they only play their good path, but we put the bad path in there as well because for that 10%, they're like, yeah, this is great. Like
All right, so we're
Yeah.
putting this under Ikaruga.
yes, that is correct. I think that's where we're going with this. I think
I'm-
Tango has conceded it.
Yeah.
I'm going to
I
agree
guess-
with that. Let's go.
Yeah. All right.